All right, we're in. Today, we're going to be talking about some partnerships, associations, partnerships, B2B, as some people might call it. But essentially, the name of the game here is how to expand some sort of revenue source just outside of membership, but still staying inside the sphere of what you do. And what I'm going to take you guys through is just what I've done specifically at CrossFit Livermore over like the last, I would say, like 6 years, probably just right before COVID. I was really doing more like B2B style stuff. And this will essentially just be the walkthrough of how I did that, how I started it. And if you guys want any of the materials for it after I finish this up, I'll be putting everything that I have. That's all like listed out on Google Docs, like any pitches in the school community, which is in the description below. If you guys go there, it's completely free. It'll be posted after this video finishes up. So if you guys want anything, that's where it'll be. So we're I'll take you guys back to right after I just got the gym. So I always make the joke that I did my due diligence by like asking for the nearest pen signed on the dotted line. And really at that time I was super gun ho and was just excited to be able to own the gym on my own without partners and do whatever the heck I felt like. And one of the things I didn't take into consideration was the length of the lease in the current building that I was in. And so I remembered I called the guy to get information on the lease term and let him know I owned it all together. He told me that the building was sold. And at that time, the gym was really just getting off the ground. So there wasn't a ton of revenue or extra cash to be had, especially to move a building. And it just so happened that I had just started this corporate gig with Columbus Foods, which is now owned by Hormel Foods. And I was doing some boot camp style stuff there, boot camp. And basically it was just like CrossFit, but just body weight stuff with PVC pipes, and just got them moving for a half hour at their work spot there at Columbus Foods. And so the funny thing is I called the landlord. I'm like, hey, yeah, I own the whole business now. I'm going to extend the lease out. And he's like, oh, they didn't tell you? Like, I'm selling the building. Like, I'm out of here. Like, you got to be out of here in August. And I was like, oh, crap. And so anyways, I was able to, because the way I was packaging CrossFit and delivering value to that corporation, I was able to get a hold of the general manager of the plant. And at the time, he was just in the class, and I kind of loosely knew these guys' roles, but mostly just their names and stuff, and not what they did. And he came up to me and he's like, oh, all the stuff I've been doing here, the squats, the stretches with my hips have provided so much value to me in terms of the pain that I was experiencing, that I want you to take it to the plant workers. And he goes, yeah, so send me out an invoice of what that would look like to have you come in, train our, management up, what we need to do to do that and get that off the ground and have them warm up prior to the workday. And so I, at that time, found a building, kind of reverse engineered the cost of getting into the new building, built that into the invoice, sent it through to Columbus Foods. And long story short, they said yes, and I was able to get into my new building. So I always like to talk about alternate sources of revenue or correct partnerships, as long as they fit into the framework of what you do, can be extremely beneficial. Another couple of partnerships that came in handy were government contracts with departments that don't shut down during things like COVID and still hold true to paying their vendors. So it really does kind of build a hedge against a couple of risks towards your affiliates. And I've kind of laid this out, and I just like to think of simple terms of like steps. So I laid this out here with a handful of slides that basically just kind of give you the long and the short of what it's like to be able to build that partnership up. So let's go ahead and dive right in. I got the first one here. Let me set it as a background. Gotta orientate myself. Okay, so I'm the small little box. So the first thing you need to think about is how you package CrossFit. I tell people all the time that you have to be able to explain. Did I disappear? There I am. So if you have somebody who is new to CrossFit or new to working out and is kind of scared about starting, if you start in right away on like some competitive side, or how we give out, there's these no reps and the open, that might immediately scare that person away. So you wouldn't start there. You would talk about the benefits of potentially losing weight, having your physical freedom back. The reason why we go for the standard in these movements is so that way we could live in a full range of motion, right? Like you have to be able to tell it to the person in front of you in a way that is going to benefit them. And then this is going to apply not only to individuals, of course, you're always speaking to an individual, but it also applies when you go, if you want to do a B2B thing and work with the corporation. Like, how do you package what you do for that HR team that's going to get the most benefit out of their employees? What are their initiatives that they need to do to check the box in health and wellness that you can provide that would allow it to make sense to them? It's the way you constantly have to be thinking about delivering CrossFit. And that's why it needs to be told in a million and one different ways. Because if you only have one way of talking about it, oh, it's this intense hardcore workout, and they're already going to come with negative perceptions. So you already have to be ready to kind of defend it if they have heard about it, let alone be able to explain it in a way that they're like, oh, I could see how that could I could benefit from that here. So that's the first step with this, which is packaging. So always kind of think about that. The first group you're going to be doing that to is your members. This has always been my strongest resource in terms of getting new clients outside of the gym, having them, their friends in, having help for various things like finding electricians and plumbers and different stuff like that. So always be first sourcing your community, because they typically come from all walks of life, all different talents and skills, and you'll never really know what they're hiding in there. So when I package CrossFit to the people that are in my community, and you find out what they do, in this case, maybe they work for HR, or maybe they have an in at a corporation, or maybe they are a first responder and they're somewhat higher up in the administration portion of it, or they work for the city, whatever the case may be. If you're able to deliver excellence coaching on the floor around longevity, around living pain-free, around eating right, around all this stuff that goes along with, healthcare, preventative healthcare, to your community in a correct way, they will say, hey, this person is competent enough in the way that they see health and fitness that I want to introduce them to somebody at my work, or I'm confident enough and trust them enough in their ability to produce what they say that I'm going to introduce them to my boss. That's why whenever you're handling feedback at the gym or movement standards, packaging the way you're telling that is going to be huge, because they're going to be your force resource. So let's say you're widely successful at it. They're all like, oh, wow, everything you tell me has added value. It's given me what I wanted. I squatted below parallel. My pain in my hips started to go away. So now you build up trust and they want to recommend you. So they're going to start recommending all sorts of different potential opportunities for you. My suggestion is, and again, just telling you what I did when I first got ho about it, getting involved in all these different partnerships, I just basically said yes to everything. And some stuff turned out great. Some stuff turned out to just be a complete waste of time. So obviously I developed some sort of line of thinking of, okay, how do I decipher what to say yes to? And that's where I kind of came up with just this handful list of stuff here that allowed me to say yes or no to it. Okay. So what time and frequency? Because if you don't have a ton of resources with coaching, meaning you can't just plug coaches into this, and I'm speaking always from kind of the lens of single owner operator that doesn't have a ton of resources, because that's just, again, what I've done. So this is kind of what I know is tangible from having done it at CrossFit more. So how often are you going to be running this program? Is it like once a week, twice a week? How long is that going to go in? 6-week batches, couple of months, whatever the case may be. And then is it close? So if they're not coming to you, if they're not coming into the gym, the next question has to be is like, is it less than 20 minutes away? Because if you start saying yes to things that are too far out, which I've definitely been guilty for, especially in the Bay Area with traffic, it's so much more added stress, and it's probably not going to be worth it. The next thing is going to be the pricing. Is the price worth it? Now you have to know the economics at your gym or with your coaching per hour to understand if it's worth it or not. Because if you don't know what it costs to run one singular class in your gym, and you're like, I don't know, I think it costs this much in expenses and labor and to be open for that hour without you, and you're not at least charging that and going somewhere else or taking up that hour, then you're already going to be way behind. So really understand the economics of your gym. And so that way you could set your pricing off of making sure that whatever you take on is going to be beneficial. The next thing is a system, because if it is something that's going to be long term, which we'll talk a little bit about long term contracts, you need to be able to replicate yourself and pull out of that position and plug people in to either help you or that could eventually take it over in general, especially if you're a affiliate owner. And then the other one's going to be contract terms, making sure that you're delivering something in small chunks in time with either you or the other person, the other party being able to walk away or renegotiate price. That's just kind of important. And then the last two here is going to be generate leads. So can you generate, are you at a business or something where you investing your time there is going to actually bring more people into your gym? And then the last one is community involvement. I put that one on there just because you don't always have to do something that's going to be involving money necessarily or lead generation. You can just be getting involved with the community because that's what you wanted to do. It was an initiative that your gym did. A while back, one of our coaches here set up a thing at the Open Heart Kitchen. They went down there on like Thanksgiving or the week or two before Thanksgiving and helped made prepackaged meals to hand out. There was obviously no lead generation or no workout or anything involved with that. They just got a group together at CL because that's what they wanted to do. So always an option, but these are the kind of list of things that I go through when determining yes or no on a partnership. So the second thing here is like, okay, so once you kind of have that down, the question is like, what are you looking for? So when you package your things together, there's either like corporations, there's some sort of first responder type thing, or there's other the small businesses local to you. So this is also how I start to categorize like what it is I'm selling. So if it's let's say that has something to do with like schools or the city or first responder, obviously that falls into that government kind of category. If it has to do with another corporation where I'm going in and serving something like a bigger corporation, not just a mom and pop's small business downtown, that's another category. And then the last one there is just local small business, which obviously multiple different benefits for a potential partnership there for both you and the small business. So those are the things that I kind of categorize right away. And that just helps me bring it into the optimal outcome bucket, which is like, okay, so if I do land one of these three categories as we narrowed it down, what's like the optimal outcome? Not only for myself, but for them as well. Like, what are they, like, what problem are you solving for them? So what is the ultimate outcome that you hope to achieve with them, but like also yourself too, as the provider of the service. So when we have the corporation thing there, you're thinking you want something long-term. And by that, I mean, long-term in corporation world to me is like 6 months, maybe to a year. You might get contracted out. Administration changes out all the time in these things. And you never know who's going to be hired in that new position, who's, cousin does fitness and now you're out and they're in just because of leadership change. Always possible to happen. But the longer the contract term you could get there, the better off. You don't have to worry about that as much. And then we have leads. Is it going to generate you leads? Is it close enough to the gym to where people from that business, as they used to you and what you do and where you offer it at, can they go there and actually become a member? A lunch and learn. I don't know if they're all called that, but that's what it was called back pre-COVID when I did a lot of B2B stuff. And that basically was like 30 minutes where you would get a bunch of the employees together on a lunch break. You would come in, kind of talk to them about whatever. And, at the end, you could kind of hand out your business card, like, come see me at my gym. So I did a few of those. You got to be comfortable like riffing with the crowd if you do those, and really understanding the audience in front of you to like capture them. I did a lot of stuff on like normal hip and back pain and how some stretches, some soft tissue work and squatting below parallel would help repair that. And that was kind of the way I delivered that. And then you could also invite them to your gym for a group workout where just that department. So you could bring in, I brought in an accounting department before, where they did this kind of team building day. We brought all 12 of them in. They did a warm up together as a group. They did some partner workouts, stuff like that. Real easy, user friendly stuff. And that was pretty successful too. So those are the ways that you're thinking about, okay, how could I package what I do at the CrossFit gym, build it for one of those each potential outcomes, and then pitch it to that corporation. They're always looking to build teams. They're always looking to put stuff in front of their employees around health and fitness. They're always willing to just basically send out a flyer. If you give them a small, hey, you get 20% off of your on-ramp or your foundations at the class here, different things like that. When it comes to the first responder stuff, you definitely want to think about long-term contract there. Typically, it's pretty easy for getting involved with the city. It takes forever to get involved with one of the departments, but once you do and you deliver a value good job to them, typically it's relatively easy to keep. You want to also think about being a training partner. So if you're around, where the academy goes for your local fire department, your local police department, finding out a way that you could either utilize them to say, hey, I could help your people for the academy, come check us out. We'd love to show you what we do. Or if they actually come to your gym for the part of the contract, like what I have with Livermore Pleasanton Fire Department. And so they show up twice a week here during their academy, and we help train them on their physical fitness as they go through that. So a couple of different ways. That's why I put referral there, because if you don't have an official contract with them, but hey, we could get your people ready for the academy. That's just another way to start that conversation. Really easy for them to do. They could refer some people out, maybe offer to take them through a free workout, something, show them your gym around. And yeah, that's another way you could handle that for a first step for first responder. Last one here is the social media. The small business one. Like, what do you hope to get out of that? For this optimal outcome, it's typically like a social media collab, like just having more exposure around people in your area is really the big thing here. If you run some sort of event, you could get them involved, so they could be an event partner. Obviously, what you're looking for there is leads. If it's the right business, you could do a referral thing. Like, hey, you send your people over to me. For every person that comes from you, I give you X amount of dollars. Okay. I usually don't get too in the weeds with that one unless you have the right partner for it. This could be potentially like a rehab center or something like that. And we use it for our youth strength and conditioning with a batting cage partner, where they actually receive a small fee for any kids that come over and join our strength and conditioning. So you can get creative, but again, think about what is optimal outcome and how do I need to package what I do to deliver to these people. All right, so the couple more things here, almost through the framework. So once you know how to package it, once you know where you're building it to, the idea first is to come as like, what problem are you solving for them? And you could just simply ask, like, hey, how do you see us helping your employees at Corporation X? So like, what do you think would be the most beneficial for your employees? And then coming up with some sort of idea that's going to be easy for them to implement at their space. If you start off by being like, oh, you got to buy all this equipment and have here, you're going to lose them right away, obviously. So easy to do. Put some sort of time around that. Like, hey, let's try it out for 2 weeks, 2 days a week, something of that sort. And then slowly start to build upon that over time as you deliver value. Now, the idea is that you're getting your optimal outcome because you thought about it ahead of time, and the way that you package what you want and what you want to get out of it along with them. And then this idea is beneficial for them too. It's really just all about being able to package CrossFit in a way that resonates. So I hope you guys find the theme of all through this. And then the last thing here is building a system behind it. So once you have kind of this idea of how you pitch it to each one of these buckets, maybe you've done some work for a few of them. Now you could basically synthesize what you do and start to replicate that across the partnerships that are right for you. It's different in everybody's local area, and sometimes it's really tough to get through. Sometimes it's not. But yeah, it just really just depends on where you're going after and who you're going after in your area. Some people got some easy success with it. Sometimes it takes a while, but sourcing your own community as a foot in the door, so to speak, is really important. Slater, what's up, dude? Do you ever get questioned heavily for fire departments about injuries? My city I work for is super paranoid because people are always going on workers' comp from working out on duty. Yes, exactly. So Slater, that's a great question. And thank you. Yeah, because here's the deal. I start with that. So I go, so what are most of the people going out on injury for? And they'll start saying, oh, like dumb stuff. They'll throw their back out lifting or their hips out, or maybe it's work related, but they start to get into potential workout related injuries. That's why they're hesitant on it. I start with going like, yeah, that's why I'm going to come in and do a mobility assessment with all of your people, because if they're limited in range of motion in certain areas, then we need to fix that and come up with a plan so they don't get hurt and they don't have more workers' comp days. So really by kind of leaning into the fact of what they're afraid of and how you address that immediately, like, hey, we do a mobility assessment. I come in, we make sure all these guys are suitable for exercises. I give them some homework to do on the hips or their low back or their shoulders or whatever the case may be. You're actually providing some sort of solution for that rather than saying like, hey, we just avoid it because we hope nobody gets hurt. You're like, we lean into that. We solve for those problems proactively by going through a mobility screening, then by teaching them the exercises, then by working with them 2 days a week, whatever the case may be. And that's really how I've got to the fire departments and kind of into that responder thing, because all of them, including the corporations, by the way, are going to be more worried about their liability than anything else. I mean, I used to package CrossFit for Wente, which is like a local winery here that's been here for forever in Livermore, one of the bigger ones. It was hilarious. It was like low impact cardio. And so basically what I did is I showed up there with wall balls and PVC pipes, and I ran them through just like a 15-minute like general warm up, where it was literally just like line drills, some fun games that they would play where I'd get them below parallel. I'd get the PVC pipe up over their head so the shoulders moving. Heart rate would slightly elevate, then it would slowly come down, and we kind of stretch out and they go back to work. Which also, too, by the way, led to then a larger contract where I did the same thing that I did for Columbus Foods for Wente, where I went through the bottling factory, all of that stuff, and developed warm-ups and stretches, and then taught the team leaders on that. So they did that before work. So if you really are smart about the way that you're teaching and approaching CrossFit with them, especially in the early days, the people that you get oftentimes that are signing up for these are a lot of the team leaders, and that could lead to bigger things. So again, think about the way that you're packaging that, the way that you're selling it to them, and then hold true as you deliver. And then again, you'll see here all these people at the bottom connected to the same idea. It's because once you start finding threads, like even Slater said about like the injury, you'll also see it around like, oh, well, we want to increase productivity. We want to decrease risk injury. We want to increase whatever employee health. So as you put your pitches together, you'll be able to kind of just slightly tweak it for each one of these as opposed to show up with a whole new game plan for all of them. So I hope that answered your question there. And then lastly, if you guys watched last week's video about the flywheel and the kind of spoke and hub model of the different revenue, by running different size classes, different offerings at your gym. Once you have that partnership kind of dialed down and you've worked with a few of them, you know what works for you, then you find a way to bring in one of the things that you have to offer to the partners that help make it easier to join the gym. So what I mean by that is if you're doing some sort of mobility assessment or some health assessment and some onboarding process, you could do that the same way that you do it at your gym or very similar to the partner or corporation you're doing it for. So you could tell the people like, hey, you've already gone through the half of the onboarding with the health assessment. You might as well just come give the gym a try. It's going to be very similar to what you've been experiencing here at your department or wherever the case may be. So then being able to also say, hey, we could do this for your kids. We'd offer this for sports. We could do personal training. I have specialty courses around stretching, cardio, lifting, mobility, whatever, or join our next community challenge because you're part of one of the partners. So you're technically, your family at the gym, whatever, however you want to say it. And then you invite them to your next event, your next community challenge, whatever the case may be. So that's how I kind of see it in all the different framework there. To just do a whole recap, how we package CrossFit, super important to the person that we're talking to. We first deliver that to our community in hopes for opportunities for the foot in the door on something outside in one of these three categories outside of the gym, like a B2B with a corporation, a government setup with like first responders or the city, or a local small business. The small business one, you could just walk over and door knock yourself too. Once you get that, then decide your optimal outcome per each one, per what you're able to pull off. And then once you do that, get those ideas together, try to replicate that so you could build yourself slowly out of the business with another coach if you needed to. Then replicate what you did to other businesses and first responders, and then try to see how you could fit that into the total revenue model of the gym. Boom. Felt like that was like going for a minute there. So anyways, I've done that with a few of the gyms that a few of the small businesses around here in Livermore, a couple of the corporations, a couple of the first responders. And that's basically the system of how I've built that up, which has been really big for revenue outside of the gym, really nice for like long-term contracts that just help even out revenue from some of the, monthly lows and highs that every gym owner is going to experience throughout the year. And regardless of even landing one of these, the more conversations you have about what you do, how to deliver that, the more reps you get in talking to people that have no idea about what CrossFit is, the more awareness you're getting in your local area, slowly feeds and plants seeds to all this marketing that just takes a while for it to really start to figure out what works in your area. But once it does, and once you get that flywheel spinning, it's a complete game changer for your affiliate. So hope you got something out of that. Thanks for joining me. This will repost on school, and you'll be able to either get this slide deck or the pitch for the fire department or anything else that might be handy. You could just comment and I'll load it all up to there. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it. See you on the next one. Bye.